Day by day, your thoughts and acts are being inscribed in your book of life. Hour by hour, the record is being made that must stand for all time. Once the word finis must be written, let it then be said of your book that it is a record of noble purpose, generous service, and a work well done. Someday, people will summarize your life in one single sentence. My advice? Pick it now. Number 2, live the legacy that you want to leave. I believe that to have any credibility as a leader, you must live what you say you believe. I've touched on that in the law of solid ground and also in the law of the picture. Because my legacy involves adding value by influencing leaders, I have focused most of my attention on leaders, and I have become highly intentional in my efforts to lead them. I believe there are 8 major areas of influence in our society: government, education, business, religion, media, arts, sports, and healthcare. In the early years of my career, I'd had influence in just one of those 8 areas. I am constantly striving to reach and gain credibility in more of the others. I try to do that by building bridges relating to people on a heart-to-heart level and seeking to give more than I receive. If you want to create a legacy, you need to live it first. You must become what you desire to give and see in others. Number 3, choose who will carry on your legacy. I've already mentioned this, but I want to reiterate it. A legacy lives on in people, not things. Max Dupree, author of Leadership is an Art, declared, "Succession is one of the key responsibilities of leadership. Yet the law of legacy is something that very few leaders seem to practice. Too often, leaders put their energy into organizations, buildings, systems, or other lifeless objects. But only people live on after we are gone. Everything else is temporary. There's often a natural progression to how leaders develop in the area of legacy, starting with the desire to achieve. Here's what it looks like. Achievement comes when they do big things themselves. Success comes when they empower followers to do big things for them. Significance comes when they develop leaders who do great things with them. Legacy comes when they put leaders in a position to do great things without them. It's like my friend Chris Musgrove says, success is not measured by what you're going to, but by what you're leaving behind. In 2011, when I co-founded the John Maxwell team, I sensed that it was an opportunity to choose who would carry much of my legacy. By training and certifying speakers and coaches, I hoped that we would be creating legs for my legacy, and it has turned out even greater than I hoped. Today, the JMT coaches are an army of more than 40,000 carriers of my DNA. They embrace my values, carry my principles, and add value to people in more than 150 countries around the world. And that army continues to grow. They are making a difference, and I believe 100% that they will continue doing so after I am gone. Number 4, make sure you pass the baton. Tom Mullins, an excellent leader and former coach who sits on Equip's board, tells me that the most important part of a relay race is the place that is called the exchange zone. That's where the runners must pass the baton to their teammates. You can have the fastest runners in the world, each one a record setter. But if they blow the exchange, they lose the race. The same is true when it comes to the law of legacy. No matter how well you lead or how good your successor is, if you don't make sure you pass the baton well, you will not leave the legacy that you desire. Tom knew this so well that for years he worked on his succession plan. He began early by grooming his son, Todd, who is an excellent leader, to take the baton and lead in his place. As time went on, Todd took on more and more responsibility until the baton was handed off completely to him. Tom tells me that His greatest joy now comes from seeing Todd and other leaders step up and do an even better job of leading than he did. Just about anybody can make an organization look good for a moment by launching a flashy new program or product, drawing crowds to a big event, or slashing the budget to boost the bottom line. But leaders who leave a legacy take a different approach. They take the long view. Author, educator, and theologian Elton Trueblood wrote, "We have made at least a start in discovering the meaning in human life when we plant shade trees under which we know full well we will never sit." The best leaders lead today with tomorrow in mind by making sure that they invest in leaders who will carry their legacy forward. Why? Because a leader's lasting value is measured by succession. That is the law of legacy. When I wrote the original edition of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership 25 years ago, I believed in the law of legacy and I was practicing it, but I was doing so in a general way. For decades throughout my career, I had made it my goal to work myself out of a job by training leaders to replace me. Then when I transitioned into a full-time career of writing and speaking, my focus was almost entirely on investing in leaders. As I've already explained, my goal has been to add value to leaders who multiply value to others. In those ways, I had already been working on my legacy. When I turned 70, I became highly intentional about handing off my personal baton of leadership so that my organizations and the people in them will be able to carry on after I die. When I started to examine who my successor would be, the natural person was obvious: Mark Cole. For the last 20 years, no one has been more dedicated to me or my legacy than Mark. I have invested more time mentoring him than any other person in my life, and I love him like a son. But as strong as my feelings are toward him, he still needed to prove that he was the right person to take on the role. So he and I began discussing what would be required for someone who succeeded me and led all of my organizations after I'm done. I said my successor must, number one, lead well. My successor has to be capable of leading my organizations effectively when I won't be there to give advice. My successor must possess vision. I have always been the vision creator for my organization, which is as it should be. But what about when I'm gone? I want my successor to have a vision greater than mine has been for my organizations. Number 3, I want my successor to communicate effectively. Whoever follows after me has to be able to communicate. I don't expect that person to step into my shoes as a professional communicator, but he would need to replace me as the primary vision communicator and carrier. Number 4, I want my successor to see and seize opportunities. One of my greatest gifts is my nose for opportunities. I sense them even when I can't explain them. I desire for my successor to possess this quality to carry the organization forward. Fifthly, I want my successor to develop high-level relationships. Whoever succeeds me must be able to develop and maintain relationships with high-level leaders and thinkers. One of the things I tell people in my organization is that I can get them into the room, but they must be capable of staying in the room on their own. I'm delighted to say that Mark has proven himself in these 5 areas and continues to grow and improve in them. I'm not planning to quit anytime soon, but when my time is done, I know that everything I've spent my lifetime building will be in good hands. In the end, our ability as leaders will not be measured by the buildings we built, the institutions we established, or the achievements of our team during our tenure. You and I will be judged by how well the people we invested in carried on after we are gone. As baseball great Jackie Robinson observed, A life isn't significant except for its impact on other lives. In the end, we will be judged according to the law of legacy. A leader's lasting value is measured by succession. May you and I live and lead according to that standard. It has been a pure joy for me to read my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws, to you. I've enjoyed the journey. I hope you have enjoyed taking it with me. As I finish with the law of legacy, I again, one more time, just pull back the curtains and share with you a story that's not in the book. Just in the last month, I had my 75th birthday, and all of the John Maxwell Enterprise organizations came together to give me a birthday party. And they basically said, John, you stay out of it. We're going to do this for you. Kind of made me a little uncomfortable. I kind of am a better giver than I am a receiver. But they planned it, and of course, they did a phenomenal job. And over 300 of our people and our teams came together just to celebrate an incredible evening with us. There were two things that just stood out in the party to me. And the first was the fact that Mark Cole, that I've just talked about in the Law of Legacy, spent a good considerable amount of time helping the people there realize that we were transitioning from founder to foundation. In fact, at the end of that birthday party, he and I had the privilege of handing out batons to everybody that came to the birthday party, basically saying, now you continue on. Make the legacy a lasting one. The second thing is kind of personal. It's a little private, but I think I would like to share it with you in closing. Many of you know I'm a person of faith. I would have to tell you that in my 75 years, I've been blessed way beyond anything that I deserve, and that God is the source of all those blessings. So at the end, I desired to kind of put the emphasis back on him and what he had done and who he was. So the only part they let me have in the party is I asked my wonderful friend Chris Tomlin if he would just come with maybe his buddy Daniel. I didn't want the whole band, and the two of them just bring their guitars and their great voices. And for the last 30 minutes of the party, I just wanted to worship God. I wanted to make sure everybody there understood that he is my source and that everything good that has ever happened in my life is because he's the giver of every good and perfect gift. And Chris came, and it was a beautiful closing to my 75th birthday party. I'll never forget it. Neither will the people. We all left with a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the privilege we've had to make a difference in the lives of millions and millions of people just like you. And gratitude to the source of all those blessings, God. To me, the law of legacy means you leave well by handing off the baton to those who can carry on the work that you did. But it also means one other thing. It's just personal. It's just me. My name's John. I'm your friend. Just hear my heart. I think leaving a legacy means I have something greater to go to. And I do. There will be a time when I will go and I will be with God eternally. That'll be a beautiful thing. I often say, don't leave something, go to something. The law of legacy says, hey, leave something good for your people. And the law of faith says, go to something better than you could ever experience on this life. I've loved us taking this journey of the 21 laws together. I hope you have. And always remember, my name is John, and I'm your friend. Conclusion. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Well, there you have them, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Learn them, take them to heart, and apply them to your life. If you follow them, people will follow you. I've been teaching leadership for more than 50 years now, And during those years, I've told the people I've trained something that I'm now going to say to you. Everything rises and falls on leadership. The more you try to do in life, the more you will find that good leadership makes the difference. Any endeavor you can undertake that involves other people will live or die depending on the leadership. As you work to build your organization, remember this. Personnel determines the potential of the organization. Relationships determine the morale of the organization. Structure determines the size of the organization. Vision determines the direction of the organization. Leadership determines the success of the organization. Now that you know the laws and understand them, share them with your team and take time to evaluate yourself regarding each of the laws. As I mentioned at the beginning of this book, nobody does all the laws well. That's why you need to build a team. I wish you great leadership success. Pursue your dreams. Strive for excellence. Become the person you were created to be. Make a difference. And accomplish all that you were put on this earth to do. Leadership will help you to do that. Learn to lead not just for yourself, but for the people who follow you. And as you reach the highest levels, don't forget to take others with you to be the leaders of tomorrow. Thanks for listening. And remember, my name is John, and I'm your friend.
The next 3 tracks are bonus keynotes from leaders who have been impacted by the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Jamie Kern Lima, co-founder of IT Cosmetics, discusses the law of the Big Mo. Entrepreneur and speaker Jeff Henderson talks about the law of timing. And Mark Cole, CEO of Maxwell Leadership, speaks on the law of legacy. By focusing on specific laws that have helped them become the leaders they are today, these speakers unpack Maxwell's perspectives and provide insight into real-world applications to help you on your leadership development journey.
So momentum, right? What is it? Well, and how do we feel it? The best kind of most simple example, I think, of momentum is really something you see often in sports. Like if you're watching a basketball game or a football game, and, you know, if you have a game and both teams are like neck and neck the entire game, you're like, okay, maybe they have the same talent, same level of skill. It's going to get down to the wire. But you've all seen games where one team just blows the other team away, right? The whole game, they're just blowing the other team away. So you're like, okay, well, maybe they have more talented players or a better coaching staff or more funding, whatever it is. But when the teams are neck and neck, right? And all of a sudden, it's down to the final 2 minutes and you're in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, boom, one team scores a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, and it's 2 minutes left and they've been neck and neck the whole game. All of a sudden, that team that scores a touchdown, all of a sudden they kick it off and then boom, it's a fumble and they run it back and now they're in field goal range and boom, they kick it in. You're like, what's going on? And then it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. All of a sudden, the last 2 minutes, they just crush it, right? Hit out of the park. And you feel that momentum happening. And you're like, how did this happen for the last 3 hours I've been watching it? But you feel it, right? And all of a sudden the opposite team's crying and their fans in the stage. Like you feel the momentum, right? It's palpable. We can all feel it. And I truly believe as leaders, we need to understand how to generate it. We need to understand how to generate it. So the first thing I want to talk about is this idea of momentum in setbacks. Because here's the reality. If you're one of the brave ones that is building something or actually launching a dream or actually going after something or leading a team through something, you're one of the brave ones. And in doing that, the reality is for most of us, most of the journey is filled with setbacks, right? Most of the journey is filled with setbacks. And when we have setbacks, it's so easy to let that turn into negative energy or negative momentum, right? We've all seen what happens. I use the example of people that had this explosive momentum, but we've all seen what happens when we have negative momentum. And all of a sudden we start letting that spiral, right? We start letting it spiral downward. So in setbacks, learning how to turn it around and reframe it to yourself and to your teams is huge. And when I say reframe it, and this is super important, I don't mean act like it didn't happen. I don't mean, just try to put a positive spin on it, right? I'm going to use a real life example. So when I was finally growing my business and hiring teams, and, I was able to hire some people away from big companies at a way lower salary because they just weren't fulfilled where they were. And it wasn't I wanted to pay them less. I couldn't afford to pay them more. But they believed in the clarity of our vision, right? They knew we wanted to change the beauty industry. They knew we wanted to completely redefine beauty and use real people as models in every age and skin tone and size and skin challenge and call them beautiful and mean it. Like, we wanted to redefine what's happening in the space, and that has never been done before. They believed in that vision, and they were excited about the momentum. So we're in this phase where I'm bringing people on for the first time. And what started happening is we would go to these big retailer meetings, these big fancy retailer meetings that in their past job, they were in all these stores, right? They come to my company, we go to these big retailer meetings, and we're told no. And we're told not just no, but you're not the right fit. In a lot of cases, not just no, but never. Like, we were told, from your product to your packaging, you're not the right fit for our customers. You can't sell makeup with models that look like that. You need to have unattainable aspiration, is what I was always told, for anyone to buy products. And it was no after no after no. And if you've ever been in this situation where you're trying to lead a team or inspire, and by the way, your team could be your kid, your team could be your partner, your team could be your friend, your team could be your colleagues, your team could be your entire company. But if you've been in that situation where you feel responsible, right, for leading them and inspiring them, and you get the most hurtful rejection or the most painful negative feedback, you get somebody telling you not just no, but like no forever, right? And this happens over and over and over. What I used to do, because at times self-doubt would enter my head, and I'd be like, okay, and I'd feel the momentum shifting in my head negative. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, are they regretting trusting me? Are they regretting leaving their fancy, successful brand and taking a chance on me, right? And I knew then, thanks to John, I knew the law of momentum. I was like, okay, I've got to reframe this, right? So I would sit down with my team, and I would say, listen, it wasn't about denying what happened, right? It was like, okay, this setback just happened. I know they said no, this sucks. I wish they had said yes. And then I would reframe it from an authentic, that's the key, an authentic, truthful place. And it would turn my entire team around. And here's what I would do. I would say, here's the thing, y'all. Our mission, we were so clear. Our vision is so important. Like, it's so needed that no wonder people that are used to the status quo can't understand how needed it is and can't understand how successful it's going to be, right? Our mission is so needed that I feel bad for that retailer. I feel bad that they're robbing their customers of the experience of discovering our product and our mission. Like, I feel so bad for their customers. I feel so bad for them. And I did. And it was all about reframing it from a true place. And my teams would get so fired up about that. And I'm like, this is the importance of our mission, right? Like, the fact that this amazing retailer is saying no tells us how needed this is, right? Like, we're not here for this retailer. We're here to shift culture and beauty for every little girl out there who's about to see ads and start doubting herself, and every woman out there shopping. And it was really about this clarity of vision and this clarity of mission, and then reframing the setback. And what started happening was we built a resiliency as a company. We built a resiliency as a team. And we changed our relationship with rejection, where when it happened, it didn't create a negative momentum. When it happened, it became fuel and fire, right? And we started literally like generating positive momentum out of it. And a friend of mine and John's, named Brendan Burchard, always says that a power plant doesn't have power. It creates power, right? And I would think about that a lot as a leader. I think that, right, we don't just rely on, let me see what momentum happens to me. Let me create the momentum I'm responsible for that's going to lead my team or myself or my family or my peer group in the direction that I know we're capable of going. And in the times of setback, those are the most important times as leaders, right? Those are the times where we show what we're made of, the times where we show and set an example, right, for our teams. There's a famous saying that we've all heard that you don't see things as they are, you see things as you are. But when you're a leader, it's the next level, because your teams don't just see things as they are, they also see things how you are. And when you realize that, it's a whole new level of responsibility. And so many leaders just lean on performance or the numbers or, all of the things that get outward applause, but they're not laying the foundation of momentum that's going to sustain and take them where they want to go. So knowing how to regulate momentum in setbacks, reframe it, and generate positive momentum is huge. And you can do it in almost any situation, right? And again, it's not about just glossing over it with something positive. It's truly about acknowledging the truth, right? Acknowledging it, being clear on the mission, and then literally focusing on that in order to create positive momentum that's going to help propel your team. And the other thing that would start to happen, and again, when we talk about generating momentum, so this is going to sound crazy possibly, but it's all good. So when I would get a no and another rejection, and this happened hundreds of times, right? So these stores that are known for catapulting beauty brands into success, right? The big department stores, the Sephoras, all these big stores, it was hundreds of no's. And this is years. So this was a season I went through of no. QVC said no after no after no after no. How I decided to handle it, and I think this is so important, and this could be in any area of life, not just your business. I was like, you know what? This sucks. And many nights I cried myself to sleep, and I wouldn't lie and say I didn't start doubting myself, wondering, is my gut wrong? Is all the things. But after I got over that, in every single case, and this was hundreds of times, I made this decision to respond to the rejection, respond to the setback. In some cases, it was a no forever, like I mentioned. I responded by deciding I was going to plant a seed of positive momentum, and I was just going to keep watering it. And what I mean by that is every single buyer, every single retailer, after I got rejected, after they said no, I would email them literally by the next day, like, thank you for your time. I'm so excited for one day when your customers are going to experience our product in your stores. And then I would just go on and on and on and on and on. I can't wait for our partnership in the future. They probably thought I was nuts. You know what I mean? They're like, did she not hear me? And I would just email as if it's going to happen with full conviction, right? And then I would continue to go, how do I water those seeds everywhere? Because there were hundreds. How do I keep watering those? We would get a press placement for one of our products, right? I'd email it to every single person that rejected, everyone. Great news. This just came out. I can't wait for the day when your customers see our products in your stores, especially the ones that saw it in the magazine. And then and I was like, keep water those seeds, right? And it didn't happen overnight, but we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. We built right now at this moment, It Cosmetics is the number one luxury makeup company in the country, right? Every single one of those no's, every single one of them turned into a yes. Some of them Sephora took 6 years of saying no, right? It didn't happen overnight. And maybe some of those no's turned into yes because our product was great, or they saw us making money for other people. And they're like, oh, we want them to make money for us. But But I do believe some of those no's were because like, they're like, that girl is unremitting. And if she has that, she's like creating that kind of a force. Like, I think her stuff's going to sell. Let's give her a shot. But every one of them turned into yes. So this idea that when you are a generator of momentum, not just in the times of setback, right? But also when you start planting seeds and then water them, that is how I believe you set yourself up for all that you're capable of becoming, for the calling on your life and living up to it, to becoming the person you're born to be, to taking your team and your company and your idea and your dream to the next level. It's not just trying to have positive things happen. It's what do you do when the setbacks happen? How do you plant seeds of momentum and then water those seeds, right? Because momentum can multiply, good and bad, right? As a leader, right? You're a steward of this responsibility and this calling. If you're a leader, there's a calling on your life. And when you master the art of momentum, not just generating it, but regulating it, becoming a steward of it, right? I think it's one of the biggest things you can do to have success, to go where you know you're called to go. And I really think that most people don't ever realize this, and also don't ever focus on it. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it. And I think it's just so important. And as I was going to share too, learning how to regulate it, because sometimes you have to learn to slow your own momentum. I use the example of, when people get these huge successes and then they're everywhere and then they're here and then they're there and then they get distracted because finally they're hot and all these things, right? And then they're gone. I remember after years of being told no by everyone, when we were finally getting into stores and into retail stores. L'Oreal was still saying no at this point. But in those 3 years of no's, one of their heads of the US, she became a great mentor in my life. And one day she said to me, she says, I want you to write this down. She says, winning in cosmetics is a game of perfect execution. And I'm like, okay. And she explained that a lot of brands, you see them everywhere. They're splashed in the magazines, they're in the stores, and then they're gone. And she said they go in and they can't execute. And I really took that to heart. And when we finally started getting momentum and we finally started getting people wanting us, which was so foreign to me, and it's hard, right? If you're someone that's ever dealt with a lot of self-doubt, which is me most of my life, or imposter syndrome, and all of a sudden people want you, it's hard to say no, because you're like, oh, this may never happen again. And I need to strike while the iron's hot. And right. And so a lot of you nodding. And that was what started happening. But what I realized was when you're getting momentum coming your way, sometimes the best thing you can do is regulate it and say, I got to slow this down. Right. I knew by that point that when you go into a store, you want to enter and become a top 5 brand right away, because then they throw their marketing support behind you and you get the windows and they actually create momentum for you when you're one of their top revenue generators. I knew that I didn't have, right, when you go in a department store, whether it's a counter or a big tower, you've got to have the right graphic design, the right point of sale samples, the right educators on the floor to pull customers. There's like 50 million details. The right team that's driving the right ads in their brochures, on their web. Like, you have to have it all to go in and succeed. And I knew I didn't. I knew I didn't have this infrastructure yet to be able to go in and execute perfectly, as she would say. And it's not about perfect. That's the wrong word, I think. It's about knowing, okay, do I have the right foundation in place to be able to hit the level I know I need to hit? And if I don't, I'm going to pause, because a lot of times you get one shot. I knew going in these stores, you get one shot. And if I'm going to go in, I'm going to be ready. And so I had to learn to regulate momentum. And that's tough, because I knew if I went in, I would get short-term sales. I knew I would get purchase orders. I knew it would look good on the investor deck. But I knew long-term, if I was going to hit the level I knew this brand was capable of hitting and this idea was capable of hitting, right? And I was doing it for the women it was going to impact. So I would be shortchanging them if I'm going to go in and fail in stores. So it was like regulating momentum. Sometimes you have to be so good at that in order to create long-term success. I think that is so important. And the other thing is like not just regulating and slowing and pulling back, but being really, really aware again of that clarity of vision, right? And where you're going. And a lot of times, we hear so many amazing thought leaders talk about your why. And, one of the things that I talk a lot about when I talk about your why is that a lot of people get their why wrong. And they have a why that sounds good to everyone else. And they tell someone and it sounds great, but it's actually not deep enough or personal enough, right? For them to keep going, right? When times get tough. And so I'll share more on that another time, but doing the work on your why beneath your why is so important, right? Because that is going to be the determining factor on, okay, this is my deep, deep, deep why. Do I need to slow my momentum in order to get there? Do I have the right team in place in order to get there? The part that I think is so key when I think, how did I start with an idea and build it not just to $1 billion company, but create a brand that lasts, that entered this industry of giants, which is the beauty industry. When I was a Denny's waitress, I would save my tip money to buy like one product in a department store from any one of these brands. And the day that this business I created surpassed all these companies in size is crazy. And the other part of this is when you have success, the momentum that comes with success masks so many problems. The momentum that comes with success masks so many operational inefficiencies. The momentum that comes with success masks when you have team members out of their depth. It covers all of it, right? And learning how to go, okay, I'm in this phase of momentum now where the world is telling me good job and my investors are freaking out, but I know we got problems. I know if I get comfy and if I just like, oh yeah, I want to take the easy path and just celebrate finally, I know that these problems are going to prevent me from taking this dream to the level I know it can go. Knowing how to not let the momentum of success mask the inefficiencies, the things that if I've got to pour into those now because one day they will prevent me from going to that level. I think that is so key. And I think that so many people don't do it, right? So many people don't do it. And I think as leaders, our job is to be aware of it, but also to teach our teams to be aware of it on how to do this, right? Because a lot of people don't know. And they come in and they're rewarded on performance, which usually is numbers. And when numbers are good, it's easy to not worry about anything else, even amongst our teams, right? A lot of times we don't reward the leaders in our company for finding problems and working on them now, which sometimes takes resources and time and energy, and sometimes doesn't impact the bottom line for a while. But having those conversations and knowing with clarity of vision where you're going is the ultimate way to become a steward of momentum. And I think that it's one of the most important laws of leadership. And I think that not understanding momentum, not learning how to generate momentum, how to regulate momentum, how to become a steward of momentum is one of the single greatest reasons why businesses often don't last. I'm so honored to be up here sharing my own experience with the law of momentum, John Maxwell's law of momentum. I feel grateful that I've had the experience to see firsthand how when teams don't feel momentum, they feel hopeless. Like one of the most beautiful parts about momentum being free, right, is you can create it in any area at any time. And you can teach your teams how to create it in any area at any time. You can do it at any phase of wherever you're at. If you're launching a coaching business or, leading a downline in your company or whatever it might be, when you learn how to regulate it, you literally multiply your own impact.
Thank you. So we're here to talk about the law of timing. And I remember when I heard John say that of the 21 laws, there are 2 that are difficult to teach and difficult to learn: the law of intuition and the law of timing. So I chose to talk about the law of timing, which shows that I have no intuition and bad timing, right? But the law of timing is one of the greatest gifts and tools in the leader's arsenal. But you know what I've discovered about the law of timing? Not only will the law of timing help you in your business, in your organization, in your leadership, I've discovered there's an area in my life that I need to learn more about it. And that's in my marriage, all right? Can you relate to that? There's this thing about the law of timing when your marriage can be so important. Let me give you an example. My wife, Wendy, and I will celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary this year. When we were married for our 3rd year, we had a 6-month-old, okay? So 6-month-old, we weren't getting any sleep. And I had this great idea, I thought. It was really bad timing. I wanted to surprise her with a goal-setting weekend, okay? So we were going to go away on a bet. See, you didn't think that was a great idea either. Okay, so we were 6 months into parenting. We weren't getting any sleep. And I thought, you know what? Doesn't every wife want her husband to surprise her with a goal-setting weekend? So I called a bed and breakfast up about an hour from where we lived. And I said, hey, I'm going to surprise my wife. She's going to love this. And I said, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I actually created these little folders. This was the year 1999. I don't know, many of you might not remember this. There was this big scare called Y2K, okay? So I came up with this whole branding idea called, because my last name's Henderson, H2K for Henderson 2000. I had this logo. I created these two file folders things. I had color coded. We're going to start with financial goals. We're going to get to what are we going to read this year, right? So I called up to the bed and breakfast and I said, hey, don't tell my wife, but I want to surprise her with a goal setting weekend. I said, so I have a question. Do you have a flip chart at the bed and breakfast? And he says, a flip chart? And he goes, no, we don't have a flip chart. I'm like, oh, okay. He goes, but if you wanted me to get a flip chart for you, we'll get you a flip chart. I said, that's the customer service we need in this world. So he went and found me, bought a flip chart, right? So you have to fast forward to the night. Here's my wife. She hadn't gotten much sleep for 6 months. She's getting away for a couple of nights, right? Little does she know, she's in for the biggest surprise of her life, right? So we're there on the porch. We're up in these mountains in North Georgia. We're drinking coffee. We have this pie. And the screen door screeched, and here comes the bed and breakfast owner with a flip chart, right? And he puts the flip chart. Then he hands the two folders that I'd given him secretly when we checked in. And he said, do you need anything else, Mr. Anderson? I said, no, thank you. This is going to be awesome. So I turned to my wife, Wendy, and I said, honey, surprise, we're going to have a goal-setting weekend. That began one of the worst weekends in my entire 25 years of marriage. I mean, there were tears throughout the weekend. Finally, Wendy turned to me and said, Jeff, pull yourself together, man. Stop crying. We're going to get through this together, okay? So it was the wrong decision at the wrong time, okay? And one of the most perplexing things about leadership, and I know you figured this out, but it took me a while to figure this out. And fortunately, John's book was such a gift to me. What was perplexing is I could make a decision and I knew it was the right decision. You've been there, right? You knew it was the right decision. And yet for some reason you were feeling resistance. I couldn't figure it out. And what I began to discover is the reason I was feeling resistance is because I was making the right decision at the wrong time. And this idea of understanding when the right decision and when the right time, you can't choose one or the other, okay? That's why this law is such a gift and why I'm so thankful that John wrote about it. In fact, John's quote here is, great leaders understand the timing of the decision is as important as the decision itself. So here's the reality. For many leaders, they crash themselves against this law because they're convinced they're doing the right thing and they don't care about the timing, okay? So what is the law of timing? Well, the law of timing says this, and this is so helpful. I'm so grateful for John writing this. When to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. You see, we like to think as leaders, I just got to make the right call. That's true. But you got to combine the right call with the right timing, because if you don't, you can crash yourself against this principle, okay? Now, here's what's so difficult about the law of timing. There's 4 actions when it comes to the law of timing, or 4